Well, greetings, Mac enjoyers, and I've been playing Doom 2 on this computer like all day long. Yeah, Doom 2 is just such a great game, although it's time to see if other programs work just as well on the PowerMac G4 450, aka Entrapta. Yeah. And it's keeping its nickname. Yeah, like I said, this computer is only in the most basic stages yet. It is going to have a lot of upgrades. In fact, I already have one of them in the mail. Yeah, I should probably check when when those sticks of RAM are going to get sent. Alrighty. Let's see. Yeah, there's multimedia and there's games. I don't think a lot of games will run on the PowerMac G4 unless you put in a Sonnet Encore ST processor upgrade. Let's see. Although, I could try testing out emulators. Yeah, let's see if Dgen will work on the PowerMac G4. Okay, download Dgen. Yeah, we're gonna get the one that's meant for the G4 architecture. Here we go. Let's go. Let's get Sonic the Hedgehog running on a PowerPC computer. Let's go. Here we go. Moment of truth. Yeah, I downloaded a version meant for G3 based computers. Let's load the ROM. Load Sonic the Hedgehog. There we go. Yeah, it has emulation issues. Let's try the G4 version. Here we go. Gotta try out the G4/G5 version. Let's drag it over to the applications folder. And let's see how well the G4 version runs. I mean, this is a PowerMac G4. I know it's one of the slower models, but still, it should run decently fine. Except it runs very slow. Yeah, it's like slideshow territory right here. Yeah, that's a definite no. Yeah, one last version. Let's try out the PPC version, the generalized version. Will at least be the one to redeem them all. Oh look, it has Xbox 360 controller support, that's cool. Yeah, no matter which version I test, it always seems to run slow for some reason. It could be because I downloaded a ROM that is higher resolution than usual. But for some reason, Dgen will not recognize, will not play well on any version I try. Doesn't matter, G3, G4, G5. But there is hope. There is always hope. And there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Because we're going to find another Sega Genesis game to try out, and this one's a classic. Golden Axe. So let's go. Here we go. Let's see how well we'll run Golden Axe. Yeah, so far the Dgen emulator is pretty finicky. It's running really slow. Select the dwarf. I want the dwarf, man. There's the dwarf. Sheesh. I have no idea why it's running this slow. Okay, so what's the button configuration? I can see if the same problem persists on ZS because the SNES is also a 16-bit console. It didn't work in my PowerBook G4 12-inch because of the display error. Alright, here we go. Oh. S is the B button. Good lord, it is very, very slow. Like, painfully slow. Yeah, there's a lot of lag. Sheesh. Hopefully this will be fixed with a processor upgrade. I did download another Sonic the Hedgehog app, not that weird one that I downloaded from another site. This one is the Japanese version, which is also downloaded from the same site I usually get the SNES ROMs. Okay, let's load Sonic the Hedgehog. This is the Japanese and South Korean version. Same issues. Noticeable slowdown. Yeah, that's what happens when you have slowdown. Jeez. It's like slideshow territory, man. That's enough of that. Let's try out ZSNES. I'm hoping the same problem doesn't persist on ZSNES. Oh, did I say ZSNES? I meant to say SNES 9X. Yeah, that's what it's actually called. I can't really remember what it's called. So I always call it ZSNES, but it's actually called SNES 9X. Yeah, I always test it with Aero Fighters. And the cool thing about this emulator is that you can actually use any controller you want. So, I'm going to use the MSI gamepad. Yeah, I'm going to use a modern gamepad. Whoops. On a 1999 computer. Zoom. There. Move it. Yeah. You easily move the G4. Even with it being full of hard drives. Yeah, it's an easy to move case. There we go. Alright, let's test out SNES 9X. Now let's configure controllers. It's really up to you if you want to use the analog stick or the D-pad for the D-pad controls themselves. Yeah, that's how you configure a controller in SNES 9X. Yeah, I usually test out Aero Fighters. This game is really rare and expensive. In fact, like I said, you're better off playing it on an emulator. Wait a minute. Something's not right. SNES 9X runs perfectly fine on the G4, but Dgen, for some reason, stuttered. Even though both consoles are 16-bit. Yeah, no, the SNES has a slower processor than the Sega Genesis. That's why Sega came up with blast processing in the first place. But the SNES has better stats all around. It has, yeah, it's a much more advanced console all around aside from the whole processor. Yeah, this time we're gonna put Dgen, since he was pretty OP the last time I played this game. Yeah. Yeah, it runs fine. Like, even with 450 megahertz, the Super Nintendo emulator still runs well on this computer. Yeah. There's just no excuse for Dgen to run poorly on the PowerPC Max. Yeah, it does slow down sometimes, but still, it runs pretty well. Yeah, you see that missiles are pretty overpowered in any shmup because they're basically a homing weapon. And it kind of removes any challenge that the game might possess. It's kind of like having a freaking cheat code. But the bosses are still hard, though. Yeah, especially this one, the Avro Falcon boss. Yeah, it's not the same Avro company as Avro Canada that made the infamous CF015 Aero. This is the British arm of Avro that made the Vulcan. Yeah, remember the Aero project? Yeah, Avro Canada wanted to make a supersonic fighter jet, so they decided to make one, but the problem is money. Yeah, Canada is not one of the richest countries in the world, so money became an issue, I think. And the project was getting out of hand, so they shelved it. Yeah. Just like any project, money is always an issue. That's the notification going off. Yeah, there's the missiles again. Yeah, like, you definitely need a turbo controller for this game. Because you don't actually hold down and fire. See, like, if I try to do that, like Contra, it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. Yeah, we have one last emulator to try out, and that's the GBA emulator for PowerPC. So let's hop straight to it. This should be good. I'm going to test out Mario Kart Super Circuit. Here we go. Again with the small screen. Yeah, like the screen size is really tiny. Again, I understand that it's the Game Boy Advance, and Game Boy Advance screens are known to be small. In fact, the screen resolution is known to be small because of a handheld, but I'm not sure if that's an excuse to have a really tiny screen on the emulator itself. Anyways. Let's do 100cc and play as Bowser this time. The king himself. Yeah, King Koopa himself. Yeah, I gotta say, Jack Black really knocked it out of the park when he played as Bowser. Well, at least did the voice for him because, well, it's an animated movie. And you have to have voice work. Yeah, there's a bit of stuttering. But it's a 450 megahertz system, so what do you expect? Yeah. It does have slowdown. I mean, it's choppy, but at least it's playable. Isn't like Dgen, where it's borderline unplayable. Yeah. Still nowhere near as good as the Game Boy Advance, though. Yeah. It's a lot of slowdown. Hopefully the slowdown will be fixed if I put in a faster processor. But the slowdown actually does make the game significantly easier, though. Although, it's not the same speed as the original. I've played this game on the Game Boy Advance a lot. And it doesn't play anything like this. But it's amazing that even though the Game Boy Advance is technically more advanced than the Sega Genesis, the emulator itself still runs better than Dgen. Yeah, I'm still trying to figure that out. Probably some emulation issue. Just really hoping it would run better than the AtGames consoles. Yeah, this track is easy. It's basically just one big circle. Yeah, on Mario Kart Wii it's really easy. I pretty much mentioned this before. Yeah. Yoshi sucks in that game, by the way. I just found that out. If you play as Yoshi, you get 0 skill points in that game. And Mario Kart Super Circuit has a skill-based system for the star rankings themselves. Yeah, and there's no incentive on playing as Yoshi unless you want to do a challenge run. Yeah, that's race number 2-1. Yeah, it does say that you need a low-end G4 to be able to run this emulator. Yeah, there's absolutely no reason to play as Yoshi in this game. It's cool that he does the signature Yoshi catchphrase instead of the generic dinosaur sounds that he had in the previous game, Mario Kart 64, but he still sucks. Yeah, and I believe Nintendo did that on purpose, because they probably wanted to nerf Yoshi, because some Nintendo employee played Mario Kart 64 and got really upset when he lost to that one player who played as Yoshi. So they purposely made Yoshi suck in that game. Yeah. Uh-oh, red shelved. Oh, this is a game that you would definitely play and hope that you wouldn't lose any friends, because you're spamming items like these. Yeah. We all know the story. Losing friends over Mario Kart. I will see if this emulator runs with a faster processor. But that won't be for a while, though. Because the processor upgrades don't come cheap. I already found circuit BC1. Yeah, BC3 is more memorable. Because of, well, you know, the ultra shortcuts in Mario Kart Wii. Yeah, at least we have the home track advantage. Because it's Bowser's Castle. Come on. Yeah, frame rates on this emulator is not that great. Yeah, like, frame rate's not that great, but it is, well, a 450 megahertz PowerPC G4 processor, so we expect. It was powerful back then, especially when it came to an export ban because of fears that in the wrong hands, enemy countries might develop nukes. Yeah. People were really scared back then. But nowadays, it's not nearly as fast as some of the more modern systems. Alrighty, that's Visual Boy Advance tested out. Yeah, it doesn't run that well, but you could still run Game Boy Advance games on the G4. And that is all I gotta say about it. I mean, it's amazing that this emulator can run on a computer from 1999. Yeah, this computer was made a whole year or two before the Game Boy Advance even existed, and yet the Power Mac G4 still runs it pretty well. Yeah, data cannot be saved, but it's just a test anyways. Error creating file battery. Saves. Yeah. It's just a test. Just for curiosity's sake. I want to see how well F-Zero would run on the Power Mac G4. Yeah, I gotta set up the controller again. There we go. We're ready to play F-Zero. And this time we're only going to do one track, just to see how well it runs. Yeah. So far so good. Select your car. Or machine. Let's do Fire Stingray. Samurai Goro's machine. Yeah, Samurai Goro's kind of like the Wario of F-Zero. He's more like the Wario of F-Zero than Blood Falcon himself. Yeah, he has an excellent personality. Let's do Night League. Alright, standard class. I don't suck that bad. There we go. Yeah, look at F-Zero running. It's a far more sophisticated game than Sonic the Hedgehog, and yet it runs better on the G4. How is that even possible, man? Yeah, like, that shouldn't even be possible. Yeah, we're using Boost. Music's great, by the way. It does sometimes lag, but it is running excellent. Yeah, there's Captain Falcon, Samurai Goro's main rival. Yes, I know about the F-Zero games and know what characters fly each machine or use each machine. It's not necessarily fly, it's more like hover. The futuristic hover cars. Yeah. And the reason, here's an interesting fun fact. Did you know that the reason why Samurai Goro's machine is pink is because in the anime, it was painted pink because that's his wife's, and yes, he has a wife in the anime itself named Lisa Brilliant's favorite color. Yeah, it's his wife's favorite color. That's why it's painted like that. That's why his wife has her machine painted green. Just want to tell you that. Some useless bit of information. So yeah, at least it makes sense of why it was Fire Stingray's pink. Because, well, why else would it be pink besides the fact that he did it for his wife? Or you can make up your own crazy reason. But anyways, let's see if arcade games will run well on the G4. Hopefully they won't be too taxing. I downloaded a program called MacMAME, which is basically MAME made for PowerPC Macs. There's also a version made for classic Mac OS. So, how do you get a ROM running on there? Well, I'll tell you. You have to go up to Documents, then go into MacMAME user data, then go to ROMs, and drag and drop the ROMs into the ROM folder, and there you go. That's how you do it. And your ROMs are in the emulator itself. It's a bit different from SNES 9X and Visual Boy Advance. Here, those emulators are just plug and play. But this emulator is a bit more involved. So once I get the controller set up, it's time to test out Eurofighters. Are you excited? I know I am. Okay, so here's how to insert coins on the emulator itself. You have to press 5 on the keyboard. And if you want to press 1 or 2 players, you have to press 1 for 1 player and 2 for 2 players. So I'm going to press 1. There we go. It's pretty much near identical to the SNES version of Eurofighters. Except you have to insert coins. And has that randomly generating stage that's present on the SNES version. Oh man, it's a bit easier on arcade, oddly enough. And here's the cool thing about MacMAME. Full screen! Yeah, not even SNES 9X or even Visual Boy Advance can go full screen. That's one up for, that's one up on MacMAME for full screen. Yeah, still pretty overpowered in the arcade version. Yeah, I think there's far less projectiles to deal with than on the SNES version. Oh, there's the boss. Yeah. Insert a coin. Yeah, the cool thing about this game is that you can keep pressing 5 and have unlimited continues. But you still have to press 5 in conjunction with 1, though. Although, don't try to have this as a replacement for arcades. Because there's a reason why arcades have to be in business. There we go. It's much better on arcade than the SNES. Probably Neo Geo as well. I don't know if there's a Neo Geo emulator for PowerPC. It would be cool. And just like SNES 9X and Visual Boy Advance, you can also play this game with a controller. Yeah, I'm not using the keyboard, I'm using a controller. I'm using the trusty MSI gamepad. Alright, 5 and 1. Yeah. Once we finish this level, we'll test out Street Fighter. Because that's the most important game to test out for any arcade emulator. Street Fighter. Yeah. I'm not that good at Street Fighter, to be honest. Oh, there's the Admiral Vulcan! Yeah, in real life, if you were to play this game, you have to gobble up a lot of quarters. But because this is an arcade emulator, you would have unlimited continues. Although, I think that most arcade centers nowadays probably use tokens instead of quarters. Yeah, like unlimited continues. So you can pretty much beat this game with unlimited continues, unlike the SNES version where you have limited continues. So yeah, that's Aero Fighters. Now let's test Street Fighter. Here we go. Moment of truth. I downloaded a version of Street Fighter 2. There's like 9 billion versions of Street Fighter 2. Well, there's not that many versions of Street Fighter 2, but still, there's a lot of versions of Street Fighter 2. Capcom just loves to re-release this game again and again. Yeah. So, insert coin and press 1. Let's select Ryu. I think he is the easiest to do a special move for. Yeah, we're going up against Guile. Okay. Down, down, forward, forward punch. Oops. Down, down, forward, forward punch. Yeah, trying to pull off the Hadouken. Okay, down, down, forward. Nope. Yeah, I'm not that great at Street Fighter, to be honest. Oh man, it's just sad, man. But I am playing a lot better than I wanted to. Come on, let's beat Guile. There. Defeated Guile without performing any special move. Yeah, performing a Hadouken's easier said than done. So yeah, Street Fighter 2 plays well on the Power Mac G4. Yeah, we got Ken, who's literally just a palette swap of Ryu. He's the same guy. Yeah, some people might argue that there's some differences between the two, but it's pretty much a palette swap. It's kind of like Scorpion and Sub-Zero, in that they share the same body type. But Scorpion, well, with Scorpion, his eyes are white because it's a mask, and when he removes it, it's a skull. Yeah, it's a skull face, because, well, it's not really his real face. The mask that he's wearing is not really his real face. Yeah, that is, if you ever played Mortal Kombat and know about the lore. Yeah, you gotta beat Ken. Yeah, and interesting fun fact, Ken was also it's also the inspiration for Cobra from Mortal Kombat. More specifically, the Mortal Kombat 3D games. Yeah. It's another forgettable character in the MK roster. And I beat Ken. So yeah. That is that. Street Fighter 2 works. On the Power Mac G4. I have tried multiple ROMs, and some of them usually have missing files, especially a Golden Axe ROM that I tried to download, and I really wanted to test Golden Axe, but I did download a Pac-Man ROM. Yeah, Pac-Man. Yeah, if anyone has ROMs of Golden Axe and some 3D games like Daytona USA and Ridge Racer that will work on the PowerPC versions of MAME, let me know. Yeah, it's time to end the video with some Pac-Man gameplay. Yeah, it's doing its usual ROM test. Yeah, press 5. Yeah, and 1. Yeah, it's Pac-Man. It pretty much works on any system that you can possibly imagine. Yeah. It does work though. Yeah, this game was all about getting a high score because it was the early 1980s. And high score was everything. Yeah. Yeah, the ghosts get faster the more pellets you gobble. Yeah, you know how it goes. Everyone knows Pac-Man, even the Cat in the Hat himself. It's pretty much like Doom. Yeah, just want to get past this first level. And there we go. MAME for PowerPC works. And it works well. Yeah, my favorite game to test on it was Aero Fighters. Hopefully I'll get some more shmups on it. But for now, time to sign off. Thank you for watching, and you know the drill by now. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and hit that notification bell just in case I haven't already done so. Catch you guys next time, and peace out.